Nigeria's House of Representatives has tabled before it a proposal suggesting all elections in the country be held on a single day in 2027. Should the proposal be approved, the revised Electoral Act would grant INEC the authority to hold the elections for President, Senate, House of Representatives, Governors, and State House of Assemblies all on the same day. The proposed amendments by the House of Representatives and the National Assembly involve political associations aiming to register as parties would be required to pay 50 million naira. Presidential campaign spending would also be capped at 10 billion naira.
Elections would be held 120 days prior to the current office holder's term ending, and election petitions would need to be resolved within 90 days following the vote. The House has also initiated measures to address the frequent by-elections caused by the resignation or death of state and National Assembly members. They propose that the political party which originally endorsed the departing or deceased member should be responsible for nominating their successor. But let's go straight into this conversation, as we do have our guests joining us for this. Joining us very quickly, we have the National Director General, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, Prince Dr. Chinedu Obi, who joins us this morning. Good morning and thank you for being here.
And thanks for inviting me.
All right. For many Nigerians, this sounds like a very good news because it's been a long time coming. We keep wondering why we spend so much money, so much time to run elections, our election cycle differently. What will this mean, especially for Nigeria's democracy, looking at the fact that what we currently practice has been pictured to be very, very expensive and time-consuming?
Yes, the cost of election has been a serious concern to stakeholders, particularly the Inter-Party Advisory Council. In its recent effort to make contributions towards the Electoral Act 2022 amendment, it came up with certain recommendations.
We seem to be having logistical challenges with this, and it would be nice to also hear INEC's. It's one thing to propose, it's another thing to have the ability to conduct this. So it would be nice to, at some point, hear from the INEC chairman and the higher-ups at INEC if they have the means and the capacity to conduct 5 simultaneous elections in one day, because it's going to be a logistical nightmare. More paperwork. They will have to cover all nooks and crannies. And you know, elections is not just the voting process. You also have collation and announcements. We're talking State House of Assembly elections. We're talking gubernatorial elections. We're talking senatorial elections and presidential elections. It's quite a lot to pack into one day. But what it means is
maybe we'll add the local government as well.
Maybe in the future, maybe. But I mean, in the true sense of it, what it would only require is extra paper, extra ballots for the different elections, and then collation and announcements will take a longer period. But look, we need to talk about time management.
Do you think? I also do. Maybe I'm of a different. Thought concerning the duration of announcement. I think it will be faster. I mean, we could take a cue from the United States of America, of course, who many view as the citadel to democracy. We could also look at Ghana. I mean, Ghana just finished its elections, and we could see how smooth running it was. So I would say if it's a single day voting, yes, you've rightly mentioned more papers, documentation. I also agree personnel. But I think it will be well managed. In that case, it also leaves room for accountability where things are reduced. But then again, we have Dr. Prince Dr. Obi joining us again. Please go ahead. Earlier on, we're trying to explain while you were talking before the network did cut off. You were explaining what this would mean for Nigeria's democracy. You can go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I said that would guarantee credible election in Nigeria. And particularly deal with the bandwagon effect that usually follow elections when maybe you carry out the first election and the presidency goes to a particular party. The tendency in the past is that you find that people will want to follow that bandwagon. But if you do this, it will promote multi-party democracy because other parties will have the opportunity of having persons decide independently to vote them in so that we can have multi-party democracy. So I think this development is good for the nation, apart from saving costs and the amount of resources that we spend. You see the level of violence that go in some of the elections. There's hardly any election you carry out in this country that you don't have some level of rascality and bloodletting. If you put this together and you have them one day, it will help our democracy.
I mean, it's one thing to propose, it's another thing to execute. Prince, do you think INEC can realistically manage the logistics of multiple simultaneous elections in one day, looking at its history and challenges it's faced in the past?
Absolutely, INEC can. What you require basically is to just maybe have a little more, one or two more ballot papers, as I guess what you used to have. In some areas in Nigeria, election finish as early as 2 p.m., 3 p.m. In fact, the core issue you used to have before is basically maybe issue of logistics, moving materials from one place to the other, from the rack center to the polling unit. But you notice that even in recent times, that has improved substantially. So the additional one or two elections that will join in the same day will not be difficult for INEC to deal with. Yes, we have small logistic issues, but these are things that can be dealt with. Another recommendation we've made, which is the electronic voting. We have also canvassed that we'll move to the regime of electronic voting so that these things can be seamless. Today, people sit at the comfort of their homes and do all sorts of transactions using the ICT enablement. So we can also advance in that direction to make this happen. But certainly, INEC has the capacity to do that.
All right. I mean, I do recall that in Indonesia, as soon as they switched to democracy, particularly in 2019, April, they carried out their election, and it was a single-day election, which is single-day voting process. It was quite overwhelming at some point because you have a total of about 190 million Indonesians who did come out, and in certain states there was a slow approach towards materials arriving on time and so on. But overall, it was said to be a very incisive and very good process. We've looked at a country like Indonesia where, let's just keep it at 190 million back then in 2019, which means they've possibly increased in number and size. And let's come down to Nigeria where we're over about 250 million. There are concerns about the numbers of Nigerians. Bringers asks, can INEC absorb this in one day? I want you to also touch on the aspect of what will happen to voter fatigue, what will happen to INEC and its personnel, where most times we know they are either here nor there. Do you think we're fully ready for this, or do you think we should give it maybe 10 years' time, or maybe another election cycle, like three more years to go?
Well, generally all over the world, change is usually viewed with concern, suspicion, and fear. People tend to get scared when you need to try something new. But thank God you have references in countries where they've happened. The challenges are not so much enormous. What you need to understand is the operationalization of voting in one day. The core issue is that you now would have maybe additional one or two ballot papers. Every other logistics is the same. It's just that you have additional. So the time you will be considering that is issue of counting the number of votes, because if it were to take you maybe 2 hours to do your counting, you probably need additional 1 hour. And like I said, in some areas in Nigeria, we've had elections started and completed before 2 p.m., 3 p.m. worst case scenario, you find 330 and, extreme cases is 4. It's only in places where in the past that you have late deployment. So the issue is the logistics of deployment. Once you can get that settled, that polling materials get to polling centers as early as 8 o'clock, there's no way by 2 o'clock, even if you're adding 3-4 more ballot papers, that you cannot conclude the process. So the challenge will be to deal with issue of deployment and logistics around taking materials and personnel to the polling centers. I think I don't see it as something that cannot be handled. INEC over time at the end of every election go back to look at areas where they haven't done well and make efforts. In the last few months, the Mahmoud-led INEC have been very proactive in looking at doing even their own self-appraisal. You need to see a document over 500 pages of their self-appraisal of the election, not even a standard appraisal of what they need to do differently. And consistently, they've been working on it, constantly working with the political parties. There've been a lot of movements in the right direction. So give it to INEC. I believe INEC should be able to deal with this now. So the idea of the fear around Nigerians getting worried about whether this can happen should just be something we need to try. The test of the pudding, they say, is in the eating.
Now, Prince, I do appreciate your optimism and your confidence in the electoral umpire, the INEC. But in recent times, we've seen that a lot of electoral cases end up in courts. People have often said that the role of the judiciary is not to declare winners for elections, and that's INEC's purview. Having said that, in this new proposal to the Electoral Act, we do remember that we always have court cases in the system we already operate. And now, when you pack all those elections into a single day, people would have complaints about, election materials didn't get to their polling units on time, they have logistical challenges and all of that, and they might most likely end up in court. Knowing that we're having all the simultaneous elections at the same time, let's talk about the tight legal timelines. 90 days for petitions, 60 days for appeals. Is it enough time for justice or just a rush to judgments, given that we are most likely going to have a litigation if you pack all those elections in one day? How do we deal with that hurdle?
The post-election, petitions and the complaints is something that even if you do the election one a day for a period of 1 month, and the mentality of the average Nigerian politician that believes that all you need to do is win at all costs, even if you establish all standard procedure and they are followed to the letter, and you give all the timelines in the whole world, that desperation of some politicians to want to win election at all costs will always bring about post-election agitation, So you will never find a perfect system where the average Nigerian politician will feel that everything is good. There's always going to be that tendency of people who complain. Yes, I agree that transparent processes to a very large extent will reduce the post-election petitions and struggles. However, the change of attitude of the average Nigerian and this thing that we've always continued talked about to see how we can make political offices in Nigeria less attractive so that it can reduce to a very large extent the desperation of the average Nigerian politician to cling to power.
Well, I'm sure that we would hope the bill is looked into once again, especially a cross-section of Nigerians who are truly pushing and campaigning for a single-day voting process. I want to thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you, Prince Dr. Chinedu Obi, the Director General, Inter-Party Advisory Council. And we look forward to have you again, especially when we want to expatiate more on this topic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for you.